Hello, I'm Rachel Simons, and I'm presenting our paper. I hope this is helpful, Understanding Crowdworkers' Challenges and Motivations for an Image Description Task. First, some background on our paper. Current AI researchers are seeking to provide greater access for people who are blind to the multitude of visual information sources that we encounter in our daily life. These captioning algorithms are trained on large data sets of captions in order to generate novel captions for images that they encounter. However, most of these data sets of captions are created using crowdsourcing. And furthermore, many of these captioning tasks actually use the same basic crowdsourcing task design that has been used for many years. And most of the images that are used in these tasks are actually images that have been taken by professional and cited photographers and taken from pre-filtered sources online. There's little research consensus on what actually makes a good caption, especially for people who are blind. And there have been very few studies on workers' experiences with captioning tasks, as well as very few studies on workers' understanding of the captioning needs for people who are blind. So for our study, we were interested in better understanding crowd workers' motivations and challenges in performing a captioning task, specifically a task that we put on Amazon Mechanical Turk, in which workers were asked to describe images that were actually taken by people who are blind, and were told that they would be explicitly contributing to the development of AI algorithms to support people who are blind. At the end of this task, we asked workers to provide optional comments. We then thematically analyzed over 1,000 of those comments collected from 577 workers. For a brief overview of some of the discussion points in our paper relating to task design, we found that the common task design that we did base our task on is not optimized for blind users' images, and that workers needed to use more image manipulation features and have more control of those features due to the quality issues of those images. We also found that workers needed to describe other types of content, such as numbers using decimal points and trying to decide what was important text within an image. We therefore argue that the task design must evolve in order to better support diverse kinds of image content. We also found that workers appeared to struggle with the open-ended nature of the task design and entering captions into a free-form text box. So we do propose that other tasks may want to give specific examples of captions, to provide even checklists of things to include in the captions, or potentially vignettes or stories about blind users' experiences with captions. However, we do also argue that more research is needed on exactly what makes a good caption and the relationship of a good caption to the subjectivity of both the captioner and the user of the caption. In order for related to generating captions for blind users specifically, we found that workers care very much about creating good captions for people who are blind. However, they did not always know, or frequently did not know, what types of information to include, such as colors, relational context between objects, the vantage point of the photographer, and things like inferred knowledge that they may have. So we argue that future research should investigate what blind users would actually like in their captions to help better guide the workers. We also found that workers were very highly motivated by wanting to help blind people. However, it was very unclear if they fully understood the exact impacts of their work or what they were trying to do in terms of helping people, but we got a lot of comments such as, "I hope this is helpful." So we do argue that future tasks should clarify the process and the impacts of this kind of work. For example, are workers contributing to research about captions versus providing captions directly to people? And then what are the impacts of AI? We found in terms of engaging crowd workers that workers had various levels of experience with people who are blind, including acquaintances, friends, family, and personal experiences. Many workers offered to do follow-up work and even gave their contact info. So we do argue that future studies could perhaps mobilize crowdworking platforms better to recruit allies and contributors for accessibility research. And finally, to sum up, we found that the worker comments helped to improve our task design, both during the actual task run and then afterwards when we now analyze the comments. And we do feel that they offered meaningful insight into workers' experiences with the task. So we argue that future tasks should collect and publicly share comments from workers as a matter of course. And these are some acknowledgements. And thank you for listening.